Hey everyone, it's Pastor Aaron. Welcome into Taco Tuesday on the first day of October. Can't believe that it is already October and it just seems like the days fly by. Gracie making an appearance. You hear her a lot, but it's the first time you get to see her. So again, welcome in to Taco Tuesday. I am here to answer your questions about the sermon from Sunday. That's what Taco Tuesday is all about. It's a chance for you to get to go deeper with the Word of God, deeper with the message from Sunday. And, in order to go deeper, you have to wrestle with what God's speaking to you. You have to wrestle with the Scripture. In order to wrestle with it, you have to ask questions. Things like, what does this mean? And how do I apply this? And make connections. Does this thing mean this over here? And so we provide Taco Tuesday as a way for you to ask those questions and be able to interact with me about those. And so the way that works is you text me your questions to our church text number, 281-864-3056. You text me your questions, and I come in here on Tuesday and do my best to answer those questions for you. So tonight, a little different. We don't have any questions about the sermon on Sunday, but that's actually a great opportunity because we are in this season right now as we have been talking about the It All Starts Here vision that we are rolling out for our church, leading into what we believe God's leading us to in the months and years ahead. And so this gives me a good chance to kind of dive in a little bit and talk some about that vision, about some elements of it, about some of the recommendations that our strategic vision team is making for our church as we go forward, and get a chance to answer some of the questions that you guys have been asking about that vision. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. But first, I want to pause and just say, many of you are aware, most of you are aware that, there was an attack on Israel today from Iran, over 200 missiles launched. That area right now is, it's at the heart of what God tells us about prophecy in the end times. And it is a powder keg right now. And the chance of that conflict becoming even greater than it is so high. And so I want to challenge you as your pastor to be praying for Israel, praying for the people of Israel. Those are the people that God has chosen and has chosen to work through them. And we need to be praying that the church would be faithful to be a comfort and an encouragement to the people of Israel. We know that there is something is going to provoke them in the last days, many of them to turn towards Christ. And so, maybe that is the support of the church when all of the rest of the world turns against them. We need to be praying for the world, our world leaders and our leaders here in our nation, that they would do the right things and that they would, stand for what is right and true, and also that they would work for both peace and justice. And we need to pray for the leaders of Israel as they make these decisions about how to best protect their people and their land. And so we really want to pray for them. And for several months, there's something that there's a group of us have been doing, that's stopping at 9 p.m. each night and praying for our church, for one thing, but praying for Israel, praying for the hostages that are still being held by Hamas in Gaza, and praying for the people of Israel, praying for God's protection and his provision over them. And so I'd invite you to join us. Maybe I set an alarm on my phone for 8:59 p.m. every night, and it goes off and gives me a chance to get where I need to be, and join us in prayer every night at 9 as we lift up Israel and her people. Okay, let's turn our attention over to the It All Starts Here vision. And so there's one specific thing that I want to tackle tonight about that vision. And it is one of the questions that our strategic vision team wrestled with as we prayed and sought God's wisdom and God's will for where Sterlingwood should go next, is what does our church do with the property on Highway 90? How does it fit into the vision that God is giving us? And that is a big question because for about 20 years, Sterlingwood has owned 40 acres on Highway 90 in the Beltway. Many of you know this story, and maybe some of you don't. Maybe some of you are newer to Sterlingwood, and you don't know the full story there. I've only been here 6 years, and so I've had to piece together bits and pieces from things that other people have shared. But for 20 years, we've owned that, and it was originally bought with the intention of building a church there, moving from our current location to that location. There were architectural drawings. Those have been in my office since I got here, and that was originally what was thought. And so obviously God has not provided or opened the door for that to happen in 20 years. And so a big part of our questioning was, what is God leading us to do with that? And so as we have wrestled with the vision that God has laid out, we have felt this huge burden and leading to pour ourselves out for our immediate community, the place where God has planted us. And one of the things about that is we are, if you look at where our church is on Google Maps and put it in satellite view where you'll see that we sit in the midst of neighborhoods. We sit in the midst of people who live in this area. We're surrounded by homes and elementary schools and high schools, places where people are doing life. And what we know is that we're also surrounded by a huge amount of needs. And we are called, we believe, to meet those needs. And on the other hand, if you were to look at where the church property is on Google Maps and you put it in satellite view there, what you'll see is that most of the area around the church property is surrounded by reservoir, pipe yards. You get into the plants along the river, you get into the river, the floodplain, places where there will never be a single home ever. And so that gives us a picture of, and a question that we ask of, is where is God calling us to plant ourselves? Now, what we have wrestled with as a strategic vision team is, how does that property fit into the vision that God has laid out for us? And I want to be very clear of something that I've said in meetings that we've talked about this, and I'll keep saying it. What we do with the property is not our vision for the future. Our vision for the future should tell us what we do with the property. And so, the vision that we have laid out, our vision for multiplying discipleship, our vision for generational discipleship, our vision for meeting the needs of the people in our community and reaching the needs of the people in our community, our vision for expanding our ministry space within our immediate ministry area, our vision for being a ministry presence in our neighborhoods, our vision for transformational discipleship. All of those things, those actually tell us what we should do with the property. And that is how we have approached this, is we didn't start with a vision in mind of, what does God want us to do with the property? That's our vision. We said, what is our vision? What's the vision that we feel like God's leading us to? And now what does that tell us to do with this? And so our recommendation to our church is that we begin the process of listing and ultimately selling that property. Let me tell you part of why that is. Our vision, the vision that we have laid out, would remain unchanged if we didn't have that property. We would still have the same vision. We would still be doing the same things. But one of the big questions about some of the elements of our vision are, where does the resource come for this? There are some things, of adding staff and starting ministries and starting, different ministry opportunities to our community. Things that ultimately will cost money and that we believe God will provide. But if we did not have the property, we would be, really looking for, okay, God, where are you going to provide this resource? We believe that God has already invested in us this resource. And I don't know that everyone is aware of what God has done in a really miraculous way through Sterlingwood Church. So when the property was purchased, like I said, about 20 years ago, the property that was purchased, it was bigger than what we have. We sold some, but that property that was purchased for about $550,000. At the time, there was about another $650,000 or so, a little bit less than that, of debt on the current facility building and the modulars that we have. All that adds up to about 1.2 million. Okay, that's a big amount. That's a big amount for a church the size of Sterling Wood to take on. Sterling Wood as a church, through the capital campaigns that were done at the time, gave, if my math is right, about $385,000. That is a huge step of faith. It was a huge sacrifice for the church. But it is a long way to get from $385,000 to $1.2 million, which is what the church needed to pay off all debt and pay off the property. But God provided a way. And so the church was able to sell some of that property, was able to donate some of that property to a really great ministry there close by. And what God did was he turned that $385,000 into the $1.2 million. What God did in that was just amazing, that God almost tripled that investment that Sterling Wood made, and allowed us as a church to pay off the debt on the building, to pay off the property, to make this significant donation, and to have this 40 acres of property left over. It is just a mind-blowing thing that God did in those days through Sterling Wood. But what he has done next even dwarfs that. We have consulted with some really knowledgeable expert real estate professionals, and people that have a heart for the church, not people who are just trying to tell us what we want to hear. And their belief is that our property may be worth more than $15 million. So God took that $385,000 that Sterling Wood gave, turned it into almost $1.2 million, and now turning that into $15 million, possibly. And when we look at the vision that he's given us, he has given us incredible resource to be able to do this. We sit in a sea of needs, and God has given us an incredible resource to be able to minister to the people of our community and to do the things that he has laid on our hearts. And here's what I know about this, is that Scripture talks about in Matthew chapter 25, the talents. Jesus tells the parable of the talents, and one servant is given 5, one is given 2, one is given 1, and they are expected to produce according to the measure of their ability and their faithfulness, and they are given an investment that is in proportion to their ability. The master knows what each one is capable of and what each one will do. And so we have been given as a church an incredible 5 talents. Resources that are mind-blowing for us to be able to do the kind of ministry that God is leading us to. And it is up to us to be faithful with that resource and make sure and use it for the things that God has provided it for. And I am so excited about that. And again, our vision as a church has nothing to do with the property. It has nothing to do with $15 million or however much money is produced. But our vision tells us what God is expecting us to do with that resource. And that is the reason that we as a vision team and as a staff and as your pastor, that we believe this is the next step for our church is moving forward in the process of selling that is because we don't want to be the servant who buried it in the ground waiting for the master to come back. We want to be the servant who invested the 5 talents and says to the master, here is all that I have done with what you've given me. And so I am excited about that. I've spoken with so many leaders that are excited about that. And look, I'll be honest, there is so much anxiety around that amount of money. It's something that is hard for most of us to imagine. We need really great leadership, really great financial controls around that. It's one of the reasons that we believe having elders as part of our leadership structure is important for the checks and the balances, the accountability, and the spiritual discernment that go with that. But the most important thing is that we are faithful with the talents that God has given us. And I, as your pastor, am excited about the fact that God would, and I am humbled, I am blown away that God would entrust us with that level of resource to do his work. And the only thing I can take away from that is he knows that we will do the things that need to be done with it, the things that he desires to see done with it. Hey, let me check our comments here and see if you guys have any question, at least on the Facebook side. I still cannot, I've got the YouTube pulled up, but I cannot figure out how to see comments. So if you're commenting on the YouTube side, I'm sorry. Text me your comments, text me your questions at the church text number, and I will do my best to answer them. So let me see if there are anything on the comments side over here on the Facebook. And is it going to let me see them? Over here on the Facebook. And, okay, let's see if I can see any comments. All right, I don't. All right, just some hellos. Hey there, Cheryl and Cheryl. Melody, great to see you, Melody. Missed you lately. And David Kester out there. Hey, guys. So thank you guys for joining me. If I missed your comment, I'm sorry. For some reason, they don't always show up for me on Facebook. Sometimes I see some of them, and sometimes I don't see them until afterwards, but I do my best to answer them. So I hope this answered some questions that you have about the It All Starts Here vision and about where God is leading us. And once again, I want to make something so very clear. I want you to hear this. I want you to understand it. Selling the property, the $15 million, that is not our vision for the future. Our vision for the future tells us what we will do, what we should do with the resource that God has given us, which means that property, any money that comes from that property, what we do with our current campus, all of those things, all of that is driven by where we believe God is leading us. So excited about this. Can't wait to continue to move forward with this. If you have questions about the vision process, about the recommendations, anything, please feel free to reach out to me. You can text those to the church text number. Do my best to answer those. And again, in 2 Sundays, we will be asking the church to vote on those recommendations and to begin the steps of moving forward with implementing that vision for the future. Thank you so much for joining with me. Hope to see you guys later. Don't forget, tomorrow night, 6:30, join us for prayer in Rocketown room for our Wednesday night prayer room. I'd love for you to be a part of that. Just really enjoyed getting the time of prayers that we've had, and then the study that we're going through, a prayer study called the Prayer Course. Really, really just excellent stuff about deepening our prayer life. I'd love for you to join us for that. If not, I will see you guys on Sunday. Have a great rest of your week. Love you guys. Bye, everybody.